Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. Hey there, night owls. This is Ryder Morgan, once an investigative journalist for the Bay City Chronicle, until I started talking about things my editor called impossible. Now I'm the voice of the unfiltered, the conduit for stories the agencies would rather bury. If you're hearing this, you're tuned into the Open Water Signal, our nightly pirate broadcast, coming from an undisclosed location along the Atlantic seaboard. The official channels have gone silent or turned into static-laced propaganda loops, so we're all that's left. I'm here because cargo ships have been drifting ashore, unmanned, along coastlines worldwide. And it's not just one or two, it's thousands. I'll be on the air until the generator dies or the authorities trace me. Before all this, I was more comfortable behind a laptop, writing stories about municipal corruption. Then I stumbled on some shipping data anomalies, entire fleets missing from maritime tracking sites, hushed updates from big shipping companies, weird missions in the Indian Ocean. I tried warning my editors. They said I was chasing fairy tales. Now we're living in one, so hang on tight. I've got late-night chatter from faraway places, voices from coastal towns, and a growing sense that everything we knew is unraveling. You might have caught the initial rumors a few weeks ago. Folks down near Key West reported an abandoned freighter scraping against the dock at sunrise. No one on deck. Think about that. A cargo vessel big enough to hold thousands of containers, drifting in without a single sign of life. I read the US Coast Guard bulletins. Nothing conclusive. They chalked it up to mechanical failure, a possible scuttle attempt by criminals. But then the calls started coming in from Trinidad, Nova Scotia, the Canary Islands. Similar stories, ghost vessels running aground, cabins empty except for scattered personal effects and half-eaten meals. I'm broadcasting tonight from a shack that used to be an old signal station for fishermen in Montauk, New York. I rigged up a few car batteries, a hand-built antenna, and a field microphone. If you're hearing me, it means we still have some patchy coverage. Let me share what I learned today. Early this morning, a tanker named FV Magnus, flagged out of Oslo, crashed near Portland, Maine. The local authorities found it adrift with no captain, no crew. The entire living quarters looked like people left in a hurry. Doors open, personal gear scattered. Coastal watchers said there was no sign of lifeboats in the water. It's as if the crew simply vanished. And a fisherman from Nova Scotia, who calls himself JC, left me a recorded message. He claims he intercepted a cryptic transmission from that tanker before it hit the coastline. The voice on the radio repeated the word infected over and over. The recording is scratchy, so I couldn't make out the entire message. JC said it sounded like a frantic mayday, mentioning uncontrollable illness and sealed cargo holds. I'm no stranger to investigating ominous leads, but something about this phenomenon goes beyond mere piracy or mechanical failure. Ships from different countries, all apparently abandoned, drifting to random shores. And before anyone tries to hush it up, I want the truth out there. Stay tuned. The generator's humming along, so we've got a couple of hours of juice tonight. I've got more transmissions to share, and maybe even a phone call or two if folks can get through. The lines are open. If you've got a shortwave or a scrambled connection, you know how to find me. It's just after midnight now. The wind outside has been intensifying all day, thrashing the battered shutters on this old station. I've been off air for a few hours, scavenging around the harbour for anything usable. A few gallons of diesel, some dried rations. Montauk used to be a quiet place, a haven for surfers and weekenders from Manhattan. Now it feels like an outpost at the edge of a fraying world. There's a rumour swirling around the ham radio circles. Multiple cargo ships drifting off the coast of South Africa. One is apparently the Elpis, a Greek-registered vessel that left Cape Town a week ago with a cargo of raw minerals. Locals say the ship's ghosting toward the beaches near Saldanha Bay. The authorities haven't officially declared it empty, but there have been no communications from the crew, no signals, nothing. Same pattern, half-eaten food on the mess hall tables, personal items scattered, no sign of a struggle, just an eerie sense that people were there one moment and gone the next. I have a contact in Durban, a marine biologist named Dr. Nina Masondo. She reached out last month, warning me about unusual readings from satellite tags on ocean wildlife. She noticed some large migratory patterns shifting drastically, like animals were fleeing certain zones in the Atlantic. Back then, I thought it might be a side effect of climate change. Now I'm not so sure. Let's read part of her message, which arrived on a secure email server I still check daily. Ryder, the cargo ships drifting ashore might be the symptom of a larger problem. We've got suspicious data on marine life fleeing shipping lanes. Some of our tagged whales and sharks show abrupt course changes near major routes. I also analyzed water samples collected from the North Atlantic. There's an elevated presence of an unidentified microorganism. The samples come from near these ghost ships. Could there be a connection? Nina's no conspiracy theorist. She's a respected researcher with the University of KwaZulu-Natal. If she's sounding an alarm, I'm paying attention. She attached a series of images from her microscope slides. Tiny, spore-like structures that appear to be invasive or mutated forms of algae or fungus. It's not my field, but there's something about them that seems off. They have strange filaments that look more like neural clusters than typical plant or fungal structures. Add that to the rumors of infected cargo, and we might be staring at a phenomenon that moves from sea to shore. Something that could spread without the typical vectors we know. I can't confirm any of this yet, but it's enough to keep me on the air, night after night, shining a spotlight on these developments. We'll keep a close watch. I invite listeners from all coasts, Maine, Florida, California, British Columbia, Brittany and France, the coasts of Japan, to share what they're seeing. This is bigger than one region. The shipping lanes connect every corner of the globe. If there's a threat within those vessels, we're all in the crosshairs. Someone told me shortwave is dead, that the internet and satellites have replaced old-fashioned radio. But tonight, I got transmissions from 3 continents, Tokyo in Asia, London in Europe, and Marseille in France. The internet might be heavily filtered or throttled by now, but the airwaves still carry voices if you know where to tune. Tokyo, Japan. Transmission at 3:17. A man calling himself Satoshi claimed to be an officer with the Japan Coast Guard. He said they intercepted a drifting container ship off the coast of Yokohama Bay. The crew was nowhere to be found. On the top deck, they discovered containers with strange black residue around the seals. When they opened a few, they found rotting produce, so they assumed it was spoiled cargo. But then they noticed a creeping mold on the inside walls of the containers, almost pulsing under the flashlights. The official stance is that the cargo was contaminated by a leak in the ship's refrigeration system. Satoshi, however, suspects it's more serious. He ended the message with a warning. They don't want us to speak about this. The official line is that everything's under control, but it's not. London, UK transmission at 3:52. A woman identifying herself as Harriet from BBC Radio tried to get an official statement from the Ministry of Defence about multiple cargo ships drifting through the English Channel. Some were escorted away by the Royal Navy. Others were turned back to open waters under unknown orders. Harriet heard rumours that one cargo vessel, Providence Star, nearly collided with a ferry, but changed course at the last minute. Again, no one at the helm. The MOD denies any wrongdoing or knowledge of missing crew. Harriet's broadcast abruptly cut off mid-sentence. I've tried to reconnect, but no luck so far. Marseille, France. Transmission at 4:15. A group of volunteer firefighters in Marseille reported an empty freighter sideswiping the Vieux-Port. Local authorities sealed off the dock. Witnesses describe unusual markings along the ship's hull, like a fungal bloom or chemical stain. The city government declared a health emergency, but offered no further details. The firefighters sounded concerned about a cover-up. They mentioned large government trucks arriving after midnight, transferring crates from the freighter. It's a surreal feeling, hearing these voices from around the world, all describing the same pattern. Abandoned or barely crewed cargo ships, some with bizarre organic growth. No official explanation beyond statements or outright silence. I can sense the worry in their voices, even if they're trying to keep it professional. Tonight, I have something special. A direct account from one of the few individuals who claimed to have survived one of these ghost vessels. The caller's name is Aaron Walters, a former deckhand on a Liberian-flagged container ship called the SS Marisol. He reached out through a secure line. Here's a paraphrased summary of our talk, because the connection was too shaky to play it live. Aaron joined the SS Marisol in January, out of Houston, Texas. The ship carried electronics and textiles to ports in South America and eventually across the Atlantic. Aaron noticed tensions among the crew during the last leg of the journey. The captain was uneasy about extra cargo loaded in sealed containers at a private dock in Brazil. The paperwork was vague, just a reference to research specimens. Shortly after they set sail, people started complaining about a strong odor from one of the containers. The ship's chief officer insisted everything was fine. Then the ship's cook vanished. Aaron described how the crew searched every nook and cranny, engine room, cargo hold, even locked compartments. No trace of the cook. The next day, the second mate disappeared. Panic grew, and the captain tried radioing for help. That was the last time Aaron heard a normal conversation on the radio. Aaron described seeing a weird growth in one corner of the cargo hold, dark, fibrous clumps that seemed to spread from a broken container. The lumps had a faint glow under the emergency lights. The next morning, Aaron woke to an empty deck. No signs of life. He found life jackets tossed around, lifeboats missing. He claimed to have locked himself in a storage room until he reached the harbor. Then a massive storm hit. When he finally stepped outside, the deck was deserted. Aaron jumped ship as soon as he was within swimming distance of the Florida coastline. The last he saw of the SS Marisol was it drifting further north, aimless. Aaron's story might sound unbelievable. Missing crew, mysterious organisms, secrecy about cargo. But it aligns with the pattern we keep hearing. Whatever's happening on these ships, it's bigger than a few stowaways or poor hygiene in the galley. Perhaps these are not random cargo shipments at all. Could they be part of a covert operation? Biological experiments? Illicit trade in hazardous materials? I tried to cross-reference the SS Marisol with public records. The shipping registry lists it as decommissioned months ago. So how was it still sailing across the Atlantic with a new crew? Official records might be getting doctored, or entire voyages might be going off the books. Either way, the truth is slipping through the cracks. I realize some of you may have just found this frequency, wondering who the voice behind the microphone is. Let me step away from the immediate crisis for a moment and explain. I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, near the water. My family ran a small marina. I spent summers on fishing boats, learning maritime basics. As a teenager, I got obsessed with shortwave radio. My first station was a clunky set that picked up signals from across the Atlantic. Weather bulletins from Ireland, news from the BBC, a station out of Morocco playing traditional music. That early fascination shaped me into a reporter who always believed in connecting the dots across oceans. Later, I studied journalism at Columbia University in New York City. I wanted to expose big secrets, arms deals, corporate corruption, hidden research projects. I joined the Bay City Chronicle and dove into an investigation about a shipping conglomerate called Triton Lines. They'd been flagged for questionable routes in the Middle East, allegedly smuggling contraband. But every time I got close to proof, sources dried up or records vanished. Around the time these ghost ships started showing up, I came across leaked emails hinting at cargo holds containing unlisted biohazards. That's when I pitched my editors. They brushed me off, said I was chasing hoaxes. So I set up this pirate broadcast. I'm not a doomsayer, I just refuse to be silent. Now these drifting vessels are all around the globe, and evidence of something deeply wrong is piling up. I'm not here to spread panic. I'm here to share unfiltered information, hoping it'll help others make sense of what's going on. If there's an answer to this puzzle, it's out there, scattered among the scraps of data and frantic transmissions. We can't rely on mainstream channels or official statements anymore. We have to piece it together ourselves. This evening, I tapped into an encrypted maritime frequency often used by the US Navy. The entire channel was busy with chatter about unidentified vessels. I caught references to operations near the East Coast, something about containment measures and quarantine zones. The transmissions were coded, but certain keywords kept popping up. Unmanned approach, hazardous threat, immediate disposal. It suggests that military forces might be actively sinking or diverting these ghost ships to keep them away from major ports. I reached out to a contact in Washington, D.C., a mid-level staffer at the Department of Homeland Security who goes by the alias Windwalker. He said orders have come down from high-level officials to treat all unresponsive cargo vessels as potentially contaminated. They're employing specialized strike teams to board these ships, assess risk, and in many cases, scuttle them. In the staffer's words, they'd rather sink billions of dollars in cargo than let whatever's on those vessels spread inland. On the corporate side, shipping lines like Maersk and MSC remain oddly quiet. Their press releases are bland statements about disruptions in shipping schedules due to technical issues. But look closely at port logs. Scores of scheduled arrivals are simply listed as delayed or cancelled. The MSC Loretta, expected in Rotterdam, vanished from AIS tracking systems. The Maersk Valencia, en route to Singapore, never arrived. Public shipping trackers show them as out of range or unknown. This orchestrated silence suggests a cover-up, or at least an attempt to manage the narrative until a stable explanation surfaces. But as the days pass, more coastal communities spot these drifting metal giants. Some local governments are starting to lose patience, demanding answers. In Italy, the mayor of a small coastal town near Naples publicly criticized the national government for withholding information after a derelict cargo vessel almost struck a marina. She's calling it a matter of public safety. That's one official with the courage to speak up, but how long until the pressure from above silences her too? This broadcast might be rough. I'm patching it in from a backup transmitter because my main unit's giving me trouble. I suspect a power surge from last night's storm. Still, I have a bombshell report from a contact in Lisbon, Portugal. His name is Dr. Emmanuel Cruz, a pathologist at Santa Maria Hospital. He's been analyzing samples from a container ship that grounded near the mouth of the Tagus River. The authorities let him examine some unusual substances found in refrigerated containers. He sent me a brief email. Ryder, we've isolated a new strain of microbial life from within these sealed units. It bears resemblance to certain fungal species, yet it behaves more like a neural cluster under the microscope. Preliminary tests indicate it forms complex networks, possibly capable of transmitting signals. Some of the tissue samples from animals exposed to it show infiltration in neurological pathways. We do not have definitive proof, but it's possible this organism manipulates hosts at a cellular level. He didn't say the dreaded term mind control, but that's what his words suggest. Something that can hijack or significantly alter living organisms. Cruz also mentioned a hush order. He received a direct message from government representatives telling him to stop all investigations and submit his findings. But he broke protocol to share them with me. If Dr. Cruz's data is accurate, we're dealing with a potential global threat that invades the nervous system. He ended the email with a reference to a patient zero discovered in a lifeboat drifting off the coast of Cape Verde. Supposedly, that person was incoherent, with abnormal growths on exposed skin. The sample from the lifeboat matched the cargo hold specimens. The Portuguese government quarantined the individual, but no official statement followed. Take from that what you will, but everything seems to be pointing in one direction. These ships were transporting something far more dangerous than standard cargo. Was it an experiment gone wrong? A naturally mutated pathogen that found its way onto these vessels? Or worse, some covert bioweapon? I'm no scientist, but the pattern is clear. We should treat every ghost ship as a severe hazard. My broadcast phone line has been lighting up with frantic calls from along the eastern seaboard. Let me read you some excerpts, names changed for their safety. Caller Lily from Charleston, South Carolina. I volunteer at a small clinic. We've been seeing fishermen with unusual lesions. One man said he cut himself on debris from a cargo container that washed ashore. The wound developed an unusual coating, like a mold. We tried standard antifungals, no improvement. Now the area around the cut shows strange filaments. The CDC won't return our calls, and local law enforcement says not to stir panic. I'm worried we're at ground zero for something big. Caller Gabe from Jacksonville, Florida. There was a container washed onto a private beach near my hometown. A few teenagers pried it open, thinking they'd find electronics or valuables. They found sealed crates with metallic cylinders inside. I overheard the kids saying the cylinders were labeled with biohazard symbols. Within hours, men in hazmat suits arrived, sealed off the area, and told everyone to leave. No official explanation was given. These stories might be anecdotal, but I'm getting too many of them from too many places to discount them. They paint a clear picture of attempts to contain an expanding crisis. People are stumbling upon cargo containers that might hold fragments of this organism, or even more advanced stages of it. The authorities move in quickly, shutting it down, offering no answers. It's reminiscent of how governments react to major crises, suppressing information to prevent mass unrest, or to hide their own complicity. The relentless wind outside is picking up again. Seems storms track me wherever I hide. But the broadcast continues. I've got news from an old friend named Lucas Healy, a freelance journalist who spent years reporting from conflict zones. Lucas embedded himself with a small group of Australian naval personnel patrolling near the Solomon Islands. They intercepted a distressed cargo ship named the Argus Dawn. The vessel was flagged under Panama, but the logs showed it came from Vietnam, then detoured to an undisclosed location near Papua New Guinea. The Australian crew found no humans on board, just a cargo of sealed drums. When they pried one open, they discovered a gelatinous mass with black-veined tendrils. Lucas said the naval crew was disturbed, yet their commanding officer locked down the area, demanding silence. Lucas managed to slip out some details. The Australians apparently sank the Argus Dawn after discovering more of these drums deep in the hull. The official excuse was structural damage beyond safe repair. He suspects they wanted to ensure the cargo never reached shore. The question is, how many more ships like the Argus Dawn roam the Pacific, out of range of prying eyes? The deeper we go, the more it becomes obvious. This problem is worldwide. Countries are either in denial or actively covering it up. The explanation might be so shocking they believe the public couldn't handle it, but ignoring it won't make it vanish. If these fungal or neural clusters can thrive in water, it's only a matter of time before they slip into marine ecosystems. From there, it's a short jump to land via contaminated fish, drifting debris, or direct human contact. I'm not ashamed to say I spent the day looking for a safer broadcast site. My location in Montauk has become too well known among local folks, and suspicious black SUVs rolled through town this afternoon, asking questions about unauthorized transmissions. They could be feds or private contractors. Hard to say these days. I packed what I could carry, my transmitter, some solar gear, a battered laptop. The plan is to head west along small roads, find an off-grid location, and set up a new tower. For now, I'm broadcasting from the back of a repurposed news van, parked behind an abandoned bait and tackle shop. The ambience might be different, less echo from the shack, more hum from the van's portable generator. But the mission's the same. Keep the lines open, keep talking, keep sharing data. Knowledge is our best defense. I'll tell you this. I noticed an anxious hush in the local community. Some fishing boats remain moored, their owners too uneasy to venture out. The harbour master's office is locked. Normally bustling seafood joints near the dock are shuttered. People sense something big. They might not know the specifics, but the tension is palpable in the abrupt way they avoid eye contact, the hush that falls when someone asks about the strange vessels. I'll keep going. If you find me, or if I find you, we'll compare notes. This is bigger than any one person. The shortwave crackled tonight with a transmission from Iceland. The speaker introduced himself as Axel Gunnarsson, a part-time radio enthusiast and glacier guide. He said a large cargo ship was found broken apart along the rocky shores near the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. The Icelandic Coast Guard discovered containers of frozen salmon gone rancid, forklift trucks left in mid-operation, and numerous sealed crates marked with a stylized letter E inside a hexagon. Axel snapped a few photos from a distance. He described a pungent smell in the air, almost chemical, that lingered around the wreck. Axel overheard a conversation among Coast Guard officers. They mentioned receiving instructions from an entity called Echelon International, who claimed ownership of the cargo. They demanded the immediate return of their property, or failing that, complete destruction on site. But Echelon International doesn't show up in any mainstream database I can access. It could be a shell corporation, or it might be part of a clandestine scientific outfit. Regardless, they seem to have a stake in these shipments. Why is a presumably private entity fielding specialized cargo across the world's oceans? And why does it show signs of contamination or advanced biological growth? Axel concluded his transmission with a warning. He suspects the cargo is part of a high-stakes experiment, the kind where a breach could result in dire consequences for entire ecosystems. My new question: is Echelon International a front for multiple governments, or is it an independent organization profiting from dangerous research? An unexpected call came through from an old cryptologist named Sara Delgado. She once worked for the National Security Agency. She left years ago, disillusioned by the secrecy. Now she tinkers with signals and deciphers coded transmissions for fun. Sara told me to watch for patterns in the messages and shipping names. She's begun analyzing references to shipping routes, container numbers, and the times ships were last heard from. Her preliminary findings suggest an orchestrated timeline. Like these vessels were launched at staggered intervals, designed to go dark at strategic times to maximize confusion. She believes someone planned this on a global scale, maybe multiple someones. Sarah also discovered that the shipping IDs from the Argus Dawn and the SS Marisol share an embedded code in their alphanumeric sequences. It matches parts of the AIS transponder signals from at least 3 other ghost ships. She's working on cracking it, but thinks it might tie to coordinates or scientific data. If true, these ghost ships weren't random commercial transports. They could be pieces of a larger puzzle, each carrying parts of something that can't be identified without the full set. I asked if she could forward me her codebreaker tool, but she said it's mostly manual cross-referencing. She works out of a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, away from prying eyes. We might arrange a secure meet if the roads remain passable. Until then, she'll keep sending cryptic messages whenever she breaks new ground. Cities are becoming restless. When essential supplies don't arrive, folks start to notice. Supermarkets in Boston, Philadelphia, and Baltimore are running low on imported goods. The usual weekly container ships are nowhere to be seen, or they're stuck offshore. Tensions are growing in major ports like New York and Los Angeles, where large numbers of empty or quarantined ships sit anchored, awaiting inspection. Officials claim it's a labor dispute or a technical backlog, but dock workers I've spoken to sense something more sinister. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, protests flare up as local fishermen complain about restricted access to waters near drifting vessels. Governments cite health and safety reasons, but offer no details. The rumor mill churns out theories: chemical weapons, top-secret nuclear testing, alien spores. People fill the gap with the wildest speculation when authorities remain silent. For those of you listening, you're part of a small but growing collective of truth seekers. Our broadcast might be the only place you'll hear the unfiltered accounts. I'm not saying I have all the answers, far from it, but I promise to share everything I learn, raw and unpolished. If enough of us stay connected, Maybe we can piece together a coherent understanding of this crisis. I received a message from a tugboat operator near Galveston. He goes by Harding. He claims to have towed a small feeder container ship toward a dry dock after finding it abandoned. Harding noticed all the cargo containers were sealed except for one. That open container held industrial lab equipment, centrifuges, glass vials, refrigeration units. It was arranged as if someone had been conducting experiments mid-ocean. Papers scattered around included references to pathogen group 7, neural mycelium, and adaptive host mechanisms. The more I hear, the more it sounds like we're dealing with a life form that can adapt quickly, possibly even control or override the will of its host. That might explain the abrupt disappearances of entire crews. Maybe they evacuated in terror once they realized what was spreading among them, or they became cognitively compromised in some manner. The open ocean is a vast, under-policed frontier, perfect for covert research and shady operations. No journalists, no bystanders, just waves and the occasional port official bribed to look the other way. If something went sideways, like an experimental fungus leaking from a container, it could spread among the crew, leading to mass vanishings. If certain shipping lines are complicit, they might be discarding these compromised vessels before they become too visible. My position in Montauk is no longer safe. I spotted unmarked vehicles near the old station, so I slipped out before dawn. Traveling along back roads, I headed inland. I'm broadcasting tonight from what used to be a summer camp near the Catskill Mountains. The place is deserted. The caretaker left months ago. The sign at the entrance is rotted, the cabins empty except for broken bunk beds. There's a quiet gloom under the tall pines, as if nature itself is holding its breath. I rigged my antenna to an old flagpole near the mess hall. Reception's not great, but it'll have to do. The only trouble is fuel. My generator is low. I'll have to scavenge soon. If you're in the area and friendly, you might catch my shortwave bursts and find me. Bring supplies, and I'll share everything I know. Why am I going to these lengths? Because I've stumbled upon a story that might shape the fate of humanity. That sounds dramatic, but the evidence is everywhere. Ghost ships, mutated organisms, quarantines. If we remain ignorant, we risk letting forces we don't understand gain the upper hand. Knowledge is power, especially in uncertain times. I managed to contact Harriet in London again. She's alive, still pushing for answers at the BBC. She says the Royal Navy escorted 3 cargo vessels out of British waters last night. No official statements, just a note that they were redirected for safety checks. Rumor has it the ships were carrying research samples for pharmaceutical companies. Harriet tried to corner a defense official for a comment but got stonewalled. In Italy, the mayor who spoke out about the cover-up near Naples has reportedly resigned under pressure. Local activists claim she was threatened with prosecution under national security statutes. This is how they keep the lid on intimidation and secrecy. The same pattern is emerging in Spain, Germany, and Greece. People in positions of local authority who question the official narrative either vanish from public view or recant their statements. This is not normal. Yes, governments can be heavy-handed during crises, but the global uniformity of these tactics suggests a coordinated effort. What's the end game? We might find out soon, whether we like it or not. Dr. Masondo in Durban sent a frantic voice message. Her lab tested samples from a beached container that fishermen found. She calls it Neuromycoceresis, a working name for the fungus. Preliminary analysis indicates it can form synapse-like connections with host tissue. In simpler terms, it might be able to interface with nervous systems. She warned that if it establishes a foothold in a human host, it could alter basic impulses, drive them to behave unpredictably, or even vacate certain areas to spread the spores. That might explain the ghost ships. A spore outbreak occurs, the crew flees or is compelled to leave, resulting in an abandoned vessel drifting aimlessly. The big question: is this pathogen easily transmissible between humans, or does it require direct contact with contaminated material? Dr. Masondo suspects it's not airborne, but it may survive for extended periods in damp environments, such as cargo holds. She also fears it could mutate. She pleaded with me to share this with as many people as possible, since her own channels are being censored. Reports of strange marine life behavior keep coming. In the Gulf of Alaska, fishermen say schools of fish appear lethargic, swimming in slow circles. Off the coast of Norway, whales are stranding themselves in higher numbers than usual. Some are found with unusual growths in their mouths or throats. Scientists who try to investigate face bureaucratic pushback. The same fungus-like clusters might be spreading among marine organisms, or at least affecting them enough to disrupt natural patterns. When an ecosystem changes abruptly, it can lead to cascading effects. If fish populations are compromised, it affects larger predators, including humans who rely on those fish for food. If the water is contaminated by fungal spores, entire coastlines could become unsafe. I'm not an environmental scientist, but these puzzle pieces keep piling up, painting a stark picture. The US government finally broke silence, sort of. A brief statement from the Office of Naval Intelligence mentioned isolated maritime incidents involving compromised cargo ships, and promised a swift resolution. No mention of the missing crews, no mention of fungal contamination. The statement ended with a vague assurance that the public is not at risk. Simultaneously, media outlets in Europe echo similar lines. Isolated incidents, nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, local news channels in Florida show images of huge ships anchored offshore, a ring of Coast Guard vessels around them. No one is allowed close. Residents talk about seeing unusual activity at night. Helicopters, lights shining on the decks, and men in full protective suits. When institutions coordinate a global narrative, it's either a massive hoax or a legitimate crisis they're scrambling to control. Given the myriad first-hand accounts, I lean toward the latter. This is no hoax. We're in the middle of something unprecedented. Let me be candid. I had a close call tonight. 2 unidentified individuals showed up at my makeshift broadcast location around dusk. I watched them from a distance as they inspected the camp, rummaged through cabins. They carried small devices, possibly signal trackers or scanners. They didn't find my van or the antenna behind the main building. After about half an hour they left, heading west on a dirt road. This was a reality check. I'm not some superhero. I'm just a voice behind a mic, trying to piece together a global puzzle. The fact that I'm being hunted confirms that someone out there considers this broadcast a threat. They want to maintain a single narrative, free of inconvenient truths. I won't let them silence me, but I have to be smart, stay one step ahead. I'll relocate again soon, maybe deeper into the mountains. If you're listening, be cautious. This is not a game. Sarah Delgado, the retired cryptologist, sent me partial coordinates she derived from the shipping data embedded in those AIS codes. They point to several oceanic regions, one near the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, another near the Mariana Trench, and a third near an isolated part of the South Pacific. These zones share something in common. They're all remote, seldom trafficked. One might guess they're clandestine research sites or deposit points. She also matched the hexagon E logo to a defunct biotech firm called Elysium Research, officially shuttered 5 years ago after a lab accident in Germany. That entity might be back under a new name, or it might have merged with other firms. Either way, we have a potential link to advanced biological experiments. I'm hearing rumors of grassroots efforts to confront these ghost ships head-on. In Naples, a group of volunteer divers plan to inspect submerged containers near the harbor. In Galveston, local boat owners talk about forming a blockade to keep drifting ships away from shore until they can be thoroughly examined. These folks are fed up with secrecy. They want real answers. Yet this approach is risky. Diving into potentially infected waters could expose people to the fungus. Boarding a derelict ship without protective gear is a gamble. Still, I understand their desperation. When governments obfuscate, communities take action. Just be careful out there. This phenomenon isn't just a puzzle to be solved, it's a dangerous threat. Listeners, I need to be honest. The scale of this crisis is overwhelming. We have confirmed cases of derelict ships in every major ocean. Multiple scientific leads suggest a novel organism that can interface with living hosts. Governments worldwide are deploying tactics, presumably to prevent mass panic. We might be on the edge of an environmental and biological emergency with no clear solution. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm making a difference. Each broadcast is a drop in the ocean. Then I recall the voices that called me for help, the dedicated people risking their safety to share intel. That's what keeps me going. The pen, or in this case the microphone, may not be mightier than the sword, but it can still shine light on dark corners. I'll keep that light burning as long as I can. I just intercepted a high-level message on a NATO frequency. It mentions provisional quarantine zones along the eastern seaboard of the United States, certain parts of Western Europe, and various Asian coastlines. There's talk of mobilizing military units to prevent the spread of an invasive pathogen. The text references the name Echelon Protocol, describing it as a unified multinational approach. So Echelon International, Echelon Protocol, these might be connected, could be the same entity or project or closely linked. If widespread quarantines are imminent, we're teetering on the brink of major societal upheaval. Supply chains will freeze, travel will halt, and panic may surge. The global economy runs on maritime trade. Cut that off, and everyday life will unravel. Maybe the quarantine is necessary to contain the threat. Or maybe it's too little, too late. I have recordings of fresh distress calls from 2 vessels off the coast of Africa. One is a bulk carrier from Malaysia, Seri Amana. The captain pleaded for assistance, citing crew members who acted strangely and then jumped overboard. He said the cargo hold had an acrid smell. He asked for a helicopter evacuation. The line cut out abruptly. The second is a cargo ship from Liberia, Rising Sun, drifting near Angola. A lone voice on the radio repeated, "We are compromised. Do not board." No further details. The message repeated for hours, then vanished. These calls reinforce the notion that the fungus, or whatever it is, can cause abnormal behavior. If the quarantines aren't established soon, or if they're not done properly, we'll see more tragedies unfold. A long-time listener in Tenerife sent me photographs of a massive freighter beached on a rocky shoreline. The images show large rust-colored patches and what appears to be a dark growth creeping up the hull. Locals have formed a perimeter to keep onlookers away. Some individuals wearing protective suits arrived, driving trucks with no identifiable markings. The witness said they seemed to be scanning the ground and collecting samples. The cleanup operation was swift. Within a day, the freighter was somehow towed out to sea. A rumor spread that it was intentionally scuttled beyond the horizon. Officials claim it was salvage, but no salvage company in the region reported involvement. Another piece of the puzzle hidden from public view. I haven't gotten much rest. There's an unsettled quiet here in the Catskills. I keep an ear on the shortwave, half expecting to hear footsteps outside the van. Each broadcast I make could be my last. But then I recall how many rely on this signal. Fear might be a constant companion in these times, but it won't silence me. I rummage through old newspapers at this former camp. Bits of 90s nostalgia, simpler times. Is it naive to long for a world where the biggest worry was a failing economy or local political scandals? The challenges we face now dwarf any crisis in recent memory. And it's not an immediate apocalypse, rather a creeping threat overshadowing the seas, slowly seeping into global infrastructure. I received a surprising message from someone claiming to represent a faction of the US Navy that disagrees with the official cover-up. The messenger calls himself Commander West. He says there's a growing split within the Navy about how to handle the ghost ships. Some want full disclosure. Others insist on secrecy to prevent chaos. Commander West believes the public deserves to know, so they can prepare. He warns that certain factions have even considered extreme measures to contain the pathogen, such as large-scale incineration or chemical bombardment of ships near major ports. I can't verify his credentials, but he provided internal memos consistent with my other intel. One memo references a plan to seize maritime traffic and forcibly detain any crew suspected of fungal exposure. Another mentions the possibility of deniable actions in international waters, destroying ships with minimal rescue attempts. Commander West urged me to broadcast this, hoping to spark public outcry before it's too late. Worldwide travel restrictions are slowly popping up. Australia and New Zealand have banned incoming ships from certain countries. Japan tightened its port entry procedures. The EU debates a near-complete maritime lockdown. Economically, this is crippling. Food prices are already rising in some regions as imports dwindle. Yet governments remain tight-lipped about the underlying reason, offering only vague statements about safety concerns. Public unrest intensifies. People aren't blind. They see the deserted ships, the partial quarantines, the recoveries of containers. In an era of social media, it's nearly impossible to keep such a vast crisis under wraps. Still, mainstream channels keep peddling half-truths, a slow drip of misinformation. I'll keep broadcasting the full picture as best I can, even if it's a mosaic of partial insights. Sometimes that's the best any of us can do. I'm on the move again. Word from a local contact indicated unmarked helicopters scouring the area for unauthorized transmissions. I packed the station in under an hour, leaving only footprints and a broken antenna behind. The van rattles on these forest roads, but I found a deserted hillside with a partial line of sight to a cell tower. I rigged a directional antenna to bounce signals off it, hopefully buying some time before they pinpoint me. A new email from Dr. Emmanuel Cruz arrived with alarming news. He suggests that the fungus can remain dormant in a host system for weeks. Symptoms might be subtle: fatigue, confusion, memory lapses, until the fungus reaches a critical mass. Then it manifests physically in small lumps or filaments. The host might feel compelled to isolate themselves or move to new areas, possibly carrying the spores further. He's confirmed that at least 9 cases in Portugal match this profile. All 9 had contact with cargo ships or their washed-up debris. If this pattern repeats globally, we're looking at a slow but inevitable infiltration. The ghost ships are only the first act. The real challenge could be infected individuals who slip through port checks or travel by land. Dr. Cruz pleaded for an immediate, coordinated global response. Let's hope someone in power is listening. A shaky broadcast from a pilot boat in the Suez Canal reached me. The operator claimed multiple freighters anchored in the Red Sea are refusing to sail onward. Rumors swirl among crews about cargo that moves on its own. The Egyptian authorities have restricted access to certain mooring areas. The pilot boat operator saw men in protective gear transferring items between vessels. No official explanation given. The Suez Canal is a major artery for global shipping. If it's compromised, we could see a supply chain collapse in Europe and Asia. That might be exactly what's happening, though the official line is temporary safety measures. The puzzle pieces align, quarantining a crucial choke point to manage the threat. But can they really contain it if it's already out in open waters worldwide? Sometimes I question if this is all real. Then I check my logs, see the incoming transmissions, the frantic calls, the bits of official memos. It's real, all right, and it's enormous. For every lead I follow, 2 more pop up, weaving a tapestry of global scale. Even with this broadcast, many remain unaware of the crisis, but those who listen understand the stakes. What happens if the fungus or pathogen gains a foothold on land, spreading beyond coastal zones? Human civilization might endure, but it'll change forever. Maritime trade could grind to a halt. Economic structures might fail. Governments might crack down under martial law. A scenario out of a dystopian novel, only it's unfolding in real time. Weather forecasts predict a massive Atlantic storm system approaching the east coast. Large swells could sweep debris from ghost ships onto beaches. That means containers or infected materials might wash ashore in new areas, raising the risk of widespread contact. Local authorities have no plan to handle hazardous marine debris beyond standard removal. This is a perfect storm, literally. A new wave of infections could appear if the fungus-laden cargo hits populated coastlines. If you live along the Atlantic, be cautious. The ocean might deposit more than just seaweed on your doorstep. Dr. Vittoria Romano in Naples claims to have treated 3 patients with advanced fungal infiltration. She used a combination of experimental antifungal meds and high-dose antivirals, though she admits it's a shot in the dark. 2 patients stabilized, while the third became unresponsive. She noted that the fungus seemed to retreat in some tissues, but expand in others, almost as if adapting on the fly. Dr. Romano wants to share her protocols with labs worldwide, but she faces bureaucratic barriers. The local health authorities confiscated her notes, citing national security. She took a risk by calling me to relay her findings. I'm no doctor, but maybe someone out there with medical training can build on this. Even partial solutions might save lives. Unrest has erupted in major port cities like Rotterdam, Hamburg, and Santos in Brazil. Workers refuse to unload certain vessels rumored to be from infected routes. Shipping companies threaten legal action, but the workforce stands firm, citing personal safety. As a result, cargo piles up, supply lines fray, and local governments scramble to keep order. Protests in Hamburg turned tense when riot police faced off against dock workers chanting slogans about corporate greed and secrecy. This meltdown in global shipping might be the biggest economic crisis since the mid-20th century, but it's overshadowed by the potential biological threat no one in officialdom wants to address publicly. Yes, Antarctica. I never expected to mention the frozen continent in this saga. A researcher at McMurdo Station emailed me about unusual cargo that arrived weeks ago on a supply vessel. The crates bore the same hexagon E mark, allegedly containing specialized instruments for glaciological surveys. But the researchers discovered small spore-like contaminants in the packaging. They reported it to the chain of command, only to be told to remain quiet. Now, if the fungus can survive in near-freezing conditions, it might endure there too. This is truly global, spanning from tropical seas to polar ice. No corner of Earth is off-limits once oceans become the vector. I'm back on the air, broadcasting amid the whine of my battered generator. If you've been with me for a while, you know we've been circling around a massive puzzle. Ghost ships, a strange fungus with neural characteristics, a hidden corporate or governmental entity, Echelon or Elysium Research, or both. And now, courtesy of Sarah Delgado, our trusty cryptologist, we're closer than ever to unraveling the coded shipping data. Sarah reports that the numeric sequences hidden in the AIS transponder signals allude to multiple Project Echelon phases. Each phase is allegedly tied to large oceanic sectors, almost like testing grounds. She believes we might be dealing with a deliberate deployment of this fungus in diverse marine environments, tropical waters, frigid seas, everything in between, to gauge how it adapts. The question that's gnawed at me from the beginning remains, why? And who is behind it? Until now, the fungus, variously labeled neuromyco, neural mycelium, or pathogen group 7, has been the star of our horror show. We know it infiltrates living hosts and possibly manipulates them or compels them to act in ways that aid its spread. We've heard terrifying rumors about entire crews vanishing after infection takes root, but a new detail has emerged tonight, one that might change everything. Sarah managed to intercept a heavily encrypted data packet, referencing something she called the alpha infection phenomenon. According to her, it implies the fungus might not always drive infected individuals to flee or vanish. In certain cases, it might anchor them to a single location. We'd assumed ghost ships were the universal pattern, crew abandoned ship, leaving it adrift. But Sarah's new snippet suggests there's a different stage of infection that leads to group congregation. If that's true, some of these missing crews might not be missing at all. They could be holed up somewhere, forcibly or willingly, under the fungus's influence. I have no idea where these enclaves might be, on remote islands, hidden ports, or deep within the hulls of certain cargo ships. The possibility that the fungus can create stationary pockets of infected people is a frightening twist. If Echelon or some allied entity is controlling that knowledge, it's no wonder they're shutting down every leak. The last thing they want is the world discovering entire populations quarantined, or worse, corralled, for the fungus's benefit. I'll keep you updated as we learn more. For now, keep your radios tuned. There's more to come. The storm system I mentioned earlier has just made landfall along the mid-Atlantic coast. Torrential rains hammered me all day, and the roads in this mountainous region are mucky. My van is half buried in muddy ruts, but I managed to rig a tarpaulin over the antenna. Reception is scratchy though. Apologies if I break in and out. Despite the weather, I picked up a bizarre shortwave signal from what sounded like a salvage vessel near the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The operator, who didn't give a name, mentioned unusual lights circling a half-sunken cargo ship. He claimed these lights weren't standard searchlights or flares. They moved with uncanny precision, forming patterns overhead. At first, I assumed he meant helicopters or drones from the Coast Guard. Then he described the slow flicker of the lights, like a bioluminescent glow that pulsed in sync. It reminded him of deep-sea creatures more than anything mechanical. Is there a chance the fungus projects some sort of bioluminescence? We've heard about cargo hold walls that glow faintly. Those were dismissed as phosphorescent mold or chemical leaks. But maybe we're dealing with an advanced property we didn't expect. If these lights truly come from the fungus, if it's visible from a distance, pulsing in a pattern, that suggests a level of intent we haven't considered. Could it be a form of signaling? The salvage operator said local authorities arrived swiftly, forcing him to leave without further inspection. He's planning to relocate to a safer vantage point and gather more intel. If you're listening, be cautious. If these lights represent the fungus expanding its capabilities, we're in uncharted territory. Meanwhile, the storm warnings intensify. High winds, surging waves. Cargo debris might start appearing on beaches all along the eastern seaboard, a veritable tide of unknown containers. We can only hope local populations stay away from them, but we know curiosity and desperation often overrides caution. I was about to go off the air to conserve power, but a late-night communique arrived from Commander West, the whistleblower claiming ties to a dissenting faction within the US Navy. He has more details about the Corona Australis, a name Sara Delgado found hidden in the shipping codes. According to West, the Corona Australis is not just any vessel. It's a specialized containment ship rumored to be the central hub of Project Echelon. Officially, it's flagged under an obscure maritime registry in the Marshall Islands, but West says it rarely docks at recognized ports. Instead, it drifts near remote ocean coordinates, like the ones Sarah deciphered, possibly offloading or retrieving research material. Even more startling, West mentions that certain infected individuals, crew members from other ghost ships, have allegedly been relocated to the Corona Australis. If the alpha infection phenomenon is correct, and some infected remain in a fixed location, it might mean the Corona Australis is ground zero for advanced fungal stages. Perhaps it's an enormous floating lab or quarantine station, a place to observe these colonies of infected people. West dropped one final bombshell. A rumor that the fungus can accelerate healing in living hosts, at least superficially, making them appear physically intact despite injuries. If that's accurate, it adds a terrifying dimension. The infected might not just be mind-altered, they could also be physically modified by the fungal presence. Maybe that's why entire crews sometimes vanish without a trace. They might be forcibly collected for further experimentation. Or perhaps the fungus lures them, using that neural hijack to gather them in one place. Whatever's happening on the Corona Australis, it's not benevolent. I'll do everything in my power to track that vessel. Tonight, I spent hours scanning frequencies from around the globe. With so many official channels locked down, you can still find the occasional rogue broadcast. People like me who keep the mic on despite the risk. A voice from Senegal. A fisher reported containers drifting ashore near Saint Louis. Inside, there were sacks of raw ore, soaked in a dark, tar-like substance. He said local youth scavenged the ore to sell on the black market. Shortly after, a rumor spread of illnesses in that group: headaches, disorientation, confusion about time. Locals suspect a toxin or fungal exposure. No official confirmation. A patchy broadcast from India. Dock workers threatened a strike after a large cargo ship arrived listing heavily to one side. They demanded it be inspected for the ghost disease. The ship's agent refused, offering hush money instead. The workers walked off. Tempers flared, and local police were called. The agent vanished, leaving the vessel anchored offshore. An Australian fisherman. He said something large is drifting near the Great Barrier Reef. Another ghost ship? The local government quickly sealed the area, citing environmental risks. Strange to shut down a massive reef area for a single ship, though. Usually they'd dispatch specialized reef pilots. This time they simply barricaded the region. The tapestry grows more tangled. Everywhere you look, the same pattern emerges: official secrecy, shipments with bizarre cargo, opportunistic black market scavengers, and local communities caught in the crossfire. The fungus, or ghost disease as some call it, is no longer an isolated maritime oddity. It's a worldwide puzzle with dangerous pieces scattered across every ocean. Information keeps trickling in about that alpha infection phenomenon. According to Dr. Nina Masondo, who's still emailing me from Durban, some newly discovered blood samples show the fungus forming tight clusters in the frontal regions of the brain. Rather than destroying tissue, it appears to interface with it. Nina hypothesizes that once the fungus creates stable neural connections, it can influence the host's behavior at a core level. While many infected try to flee or isolate themselves, which might explain the ghost ships and vanishings, a subset exhibits the opposite behavior. They converge. Nina wonders if the fungus divides hosts into gatherers, those who seek new territory or resources, and central nodes, those who cluster and establish a larger fungal colony. It's a mind-boggling concept, reminiscent of certain insect colonies or fungal networks in nature. Could we be witnessing a superorganism strategy? If that's the case, the rumored enclaves of infected people could serve as fungal hives, each one a node in a growing global network. That might explain sightings of multiple individuals huddled in cargo holds or quarantined sections of vessels, and the need for salvage operations to keep them out of public view. The fungus is more complex than we imagined, orchestrating both exploration and consolidation. That's not just mindless spread, it's organized infiltration. An unsettling call reached me around 2 a.m. The line crackled and I heard a soft voice. "We are still here. Do not fear." "Who is this?" "We are the crew. We are safe. Join us. We are not alone. We can see clearly now." Then the call dropped. I tried tracing it, but my makeshift equipment only pegged it to somewhere along the New England coastline. The phrase, "we are the crew," suggests this could be a broadcast from those rumored enclaves, perhaps a group that has embraced the fungus rather than fleeing it. They sounded calm, almost serene. That's the scariest part. There was no note of distress or fear, just an invitation and a cryptic sense of collective identity. Is the fungus capable of using the infected to communicate? I imagine a scenario where the fungus hijacks their voices to lure others. Or maybe these individuals truly believe they've achieved some kind of clarity or unity with the organism. Either way, it's a chilling possibility, a human fungal synergy that sees no reason to hide, except from authorities. I'm not sure how else to interpret this. If more calls like that come through, we may be dealing with an infection that's learning to speak through us. That's a new level of infiltration altogether. Commander West left me a set of coordinates where the Corona Australis might have been last sighted, about 300 nautical miles off the coast of Bermuda. I'm too landlocked to verify anything, but I reached out to a couple of folks who still operate private vessels. They said that region is heavily patrolled by unidentified ships, some bearing partial US Navy markings, others with no markings at all. The Corona Australis is rumored to be traveling in a small convoy. One theory is that these vessels are part of a top-secret multinational flotilla, either run by echelon or cooperating militaries. They roam international waters to avoid prying eyes, and they're big enough to handle rough seas. If so, then the Corona Australis might be a roving fortress of infected individuals, while armed ships guard it. The idea of a mobile infection hub escorted by paramilitary vessels is beyond disturbing. If any of you out there are near Bermuda or plan to sail that area, do so at your own risk. This might be the heart of the storm. We have no clue how advanced the fungus is aboard that vessel, or what extremes the escort ships might use to keep strangers away. A late afternoon message arrived from a fisherman in Marseille named Alain. He claims to have narrowly escaped a blockade near the coast. Authorities had roped off a section of beach where a large container from a ghost ship washed ashore. Inside, people wearing face shields and specialized coveralls removed a group of silent individuals. Alain said these individuals were motionless, standing as if transfixed. Their clothing was soaked, covered in a thin film of what looked like dark algae. When the hazmat team prodded them, they trudged forward slowly, no resistance. Alain hid behind a ruined breakwater and watched. He recognized at least one face as a local dock worker who disappeared weeks ago. The hazmat team loaded them into unmarked trucks and sped away. The local police told bystanders there was a small chemical spill. That was the official story. But Alain's gut told him otherwise. If that's not a sign of the alpha infection phenomenon, I don't know what is. A cluster of infected, docile, maybe even catatonic, yet still alive. They were retrieved by a well-equipped response unit, presumably to remain out of the public eye. Where do they take these people? Are they shipping them to that rumored vessel, or to hidden facilities inland? The pattern suggests that infected enclaves do exist on land, not just at sea. An urgent email from Dr. Emmanuel Cruz in Lisbon arrived as I was about to go live. He's refined his tests on the fungus's neurological effects. Here's the bullet. Stage 1. Initial exposure causes mild disorientation, fatigue, possible rash. Stage 2. The fungus establishes synaptic links with the host's nervous system, influencing basic behaviors: fight or flight, hunger, curiosity. Stage 3. Full infiltration of frontal lobe, leading to either wander or converge impulses. Some hosts run, others gather in groups. Stage 4. Fungal networks in the brain unify, drastically altering perception. Host might adopt an almost hive-like perspective, losing individual identity. Dr. Cruz wrote that alpha-level infected individuals display eerie calm, minimal voluntary speech, and a strong sense of communal purpose. They also have faint patterns on their skin, resembling branching fungus under a microscope. He can't confirm if the hosts can recover. Preliminary treatments show little success once it reaches alpha stage. But here's the new revelation. Dr. Cruz's latest microimaging indicates a partial protective effect on infected hosts. Tissues near the fungus remain almost unnaturally resilient to bacterial infections or physical damage. He describes it as an advanced immune synergy. So ironically, the infected might seem more physically stable, even healthier, while losing their autonomous will. He suspects that might be the secret echelon, or whoever is behind this is chasing, a way to enhance human resilience. Perhaps it started as a quest for a medical breakthrough, bioenhancement, disease resistance. Who knows? Now it's spiraled out of control, spreading in ways they never intended. If that's so, we're looking at a science project turned global hazard. I just learned that a fellow pirate broadcaster in Brest, France, call sign Open Waves, has gone silent. They were relaying similar ghost ship sightings in the Bay of Biscay. Last night, their final transmission was cut off mid-sentence. A friend in Rennes told me the station was raided, their equipment confiscated. The local rumor is that authorities labeled it dissemination of false information threatening national security. This hits close to home. Pirate stations like ours are one of the few channels for real-time, unfiltered updates. Every time one goes dark, we lose a critical node in our makeshift information web. If Open Waves was shut down, it's likely others will be targeted too. I can't pretend I'm immune. It's only a matter of time before they pinpoint me for good. I can only move so many times. But as long as I have breath in my lungs and a flicker of battery power, I'll keep broadcasting. For those who asked how they can help, spread the word, record these broadcasts, retransmit them on your own frequencies if you can. The more decentralized we are, the harder it is to silence us all. Around midnight, that same voice returned. We see more now, The water, it speaks. Follow the tides to where the sun sets. We gather, we learn, we become. Then a click. Gone. This time the call displayed a different location signature, somewhere near Cape Cod. It's possible the fungus is using multiple phone lines or devices. The voice was simultaneously soothing and deeply unsettling, with that faint layered effect. Could the fungus be bridging multiple infected minds, creating a collective consciousness that shares language, memory, and maybe motive? We gather, we learn, we become. That phrase loops in my head. It suggests an active, purposeful evolution, not just random growth. The fungus, or whatever entity emerges from it, perceives itself as becoming something more. That's a chilling concept. Reports indicate a confrontation off the coast of Tenerife between a private vessel and an unmarked patrol boat. The private vessel apparently wanted to investigate a half-submerged container ship. The unmarked boat demanded they leave. Shots were fired. Nobody was injured, from what I gather, but the private vessel had to retreat. Locals saw columns of smoke on the horizon afterward. Possibly the container ship was scuttled or set ablaze. The lengths these covert forces go to contain the spread are staggering. They're not just imposing quarantines, they're forcibly denying any approach. Imagine what might be hidden in that container ship: an entire colony of alpha-infected hosts, or new fungal strains. We'll probably never know. Everything gets destroyed or taken away under a thick veil of secrecy. Word from a contact in the aviation sector: passenger flights are being rerouted around certain coastal areas. Flight attendants received instructions about heightened biosecurity protocols. On shipping lanes, we're seeing the biggest maritime slowdown in modern history. Over half the container ships that normally traverse the Atlantic are delayed, diverted, or missing. Oil tankers avoid certain routes entirely, driving fuel prices skyward in some regions. Meanwhile, official media remains maddeningly vague. A common refrain: logistical disruptions due to safety concerns. The public is left to guess. People see empty store shelves, skyrocketing prices, and hear rumors of ghost ships. Panic simmers. Without honest communication, some communities might lash out. We could face a wave of unrest that rivals the crisis itself. I took a significant risk today. I left my usual broadcast spot and drove nearly 2 hours to a secluded rest stop in the Appalachian foothills. There, in a cramped diner's back booth, I met Sara Delgado in person. She traveled incognito, just a backpack full of laptops and encrypted drives. We spent hours sifting through data. Sara confirmed that references to the Corona Australis appear in logs from at least 12 ghost ships. She believes it acts as a central hub collecting advanced infection cases. But there's more. The logs also mention land-based facilities, possibly bunkers or labs in various countries: Chile, Norway, Russia, even deep in the Gobi Desert of China. Those sites might be fallback points if the maritime approach fails. She showed me a partial decode referencing theta strain, a variant of the fungus tested in sub-zero conditions. Another set of references discusses omega strain, apparently tested in desert climates. The shipping data suggests these strains had different infiltration patterns. The question: why test so many variants in so many environments? One guess: they were perfecting a universal, highly adaptive organism that could survive anywhere on Earth. If that's the case, the Echelon Protocol might be an experiment to observe and refine the fungus's global spread, culminating in a stage they can weaponize or harness medically. Sarah is convinced we're dealing with multiple factions: those who initiated the project, government or military groups trying to contain it, and people who've discovered it can't be fully contained and are preparing drastic measures. We parted ways after sunset, each returning to our respective hideouts. It's dangerous for her to travel with me, but the puzzle is clearer now than ever. Tonight, Dr. Nina Masondo weighs in with a shocking claim. She's heard through back channels that certain high-level officials within the G20 are aware of the fungus's advanced capabilities and are quietly planning a global reset. That might entail letting the fungus spread in controlled ways, culling populations in high-risk coastal areas, then rolling out a new protective biotech for those who can afford it or belong to the right groups. It sounds too dystopian to be real, but so did the ghost ships at first. Nina can't provide hard proof, only private chatter from colleagues who overheard certain conversations. If even a fraction of it is true, we face a moral and humanitarian crisis. Could it be that some elites see the fungus as both a threat and an opportunity? A chance to restructure the world order with a post-fungal society that emerges, immunized and reshaped? I'm no stranger to conspiracy theories, but these puzzle pieces keep aligning in ways that are impossible to dismiss. It's an unimaginable scenario. Allow a widespread infection, then profit from the cure or next-gen biotech. We need more concrete evidence before jumping to conclusions, yet the thought alone is horrifying. Tonight, I received not one, but 3 calls from voices that sounded infected. Each call gave cryptic statements about a new dawn, the quiet corners of the sea, and the door that opens to unity. They spoke with that same layered voice, as if multiple people spoke in near-perfect unison. One caller recited a set of coordinates in the North Atlantic, suspiciously close to the rumored location of the Corona Australis. Another caller mentioned tidal synergy, claiming, "The ocean is a cradle and we are the children." It's a bizarre mixture of quasi-spiritual language and logistical details. Are these infected hosts trying to lure more people to the fungus, or do they genuinely believe they're guiding us to salvation? The alignment of coordinates might be an invitation to the Corona Australis. If so, it's a trap I have no intention of investigating in person, yet it's tempting, if only for the sake of uncovering the truth. But I'm just one guy with a radio transmitter, not a seasoned maritime commando. A contact in the American Southwest wrote to me about a research installation hidden near White Sands, New Mexico. She claims it's related to Echelon, hosting desert trials for fungal spores adapted to arid conditions. She overheard references to building enclaves in sealed domes, presumably to study infected subjects without letting them roam free. The code name for that site is Sandalwood. I don't know if that's relevant, but it's worth noting. Echelon's reach apparently extends far from the coasts. The bigger question: are they intentionally spreading the fungus or trying to find a cure? Maybe both. It wouldn't be the first time a clandestine group unleashed a problem so they could swoop in with a lucrative solution. The entire ghost ship crisis, from that angle, could be a colossal field test. My stomach churns at the thought. In multiple port cities, Buenos Aires, Genoa, Veracruz, civilians have taken to the docks, blocking official vehicles they suspect of removing infected individuals. They're demanding transparency, some brandishing homemade signs about the fungal lies, or "Our people vanish while government hides." In some places, authorities use tear gas to disperse crowds. Tension is hitting a boiling point. If these governments keep up the cloak and dagger routine, we might see full-scale riots or armed conflicts in major ports. The maritime sector underpins global trade. Once that breaks, everything else starts to crumble. Food supply, medicine, manufacturing. This crisis is far from contained. I briefly returned to Montauk for supplies, skirting the back roads. The place feels emptier than ever, with boarded-up shops, few cars, and a somber hush. Locals probably left after repeated warnings about ghost ship debris. I snuck by the old radio shack where I first started broadcasting. It's clearly been searched, doors broken, equipment gone. Someone left a cryptic note pinned to a wall. "We watch you, pirate. Stop this." I can't linger. Montauk's crawling with unmarked SUVs, presumably waiting for me to slip up. I gunned the van's engine and got out before dusk. The entire drive back, I kept glancing at the sky. Helicopters droned overhead, but none stopped me. Not yet, anyway. Dr. Vittoria Romano in Naples contacted me again. Her attempts to treat advanced fungal cases have yielded minimal success, but she discovered something surprising about alpha-stage infected patients. They emit subtle electromagnetic pulses in the brain, measurable with specialized gear. It's as if the fungus is orchestrating brainwaves to broadcast a faint signal. Could that explain the layered voices we're hearing on calls? Are these pulses synchronizing multiple infected minds, forging a kind of collective intelligence? Dr. Romano hypothesizes the fungus might have an emergent telemetric property, allowing alpha-infected people to share information at short range, possibly even sense each other's presence. If that's true, then these enclaves of infected might operate in near telepathic unity, making them alarmingly coordinated. The phenomenon of group telepathy is sci-fi territory, but so was the entire notion of a mind-invading fungus. In the face of mounting evidence, we have to consider every possibility. A shocking email arrived from my former newspaper editor at the Bay City Chronicle. He wrote, "Ryder, I never believed you. Now the higher-ups want me to discredit everything you say. They plan to brand your broadcasts as hoaxes orchestrated by foreign agents. They'll release leaked documents painting you as a fraud. I'm not supposed to warn you, but I can't stomach the lies anymore. Watch your back." It stings, but it's no surprise. Discrediting whistleblowers is a time-honored tradition. They'll try to smear me to bury the facts. I'm prepared. My track record is public, and the evidence is overwhelming. If they want to pin this on me as some elaborate hoax, they'll have to face the reality of thousands of derelict ships and a growing global crisis. But the smear campaign will sow doubt, and in times of chaos, doubt is often enough to keep the masses confused. A source near Bermuda claims that earlier today, a cargo vessel matching the Corona Australis's description was spotted off the island's southwestern coast, escorted by 2 smaller ships with heavy artillery visible on deck. A few local fisherfolk approached within binocular range. They saw what looked like large holding pens or cages on the Corona Australis's deck. People, or shapes of people, stood inside, unmoving. Shortly afterward, the escorts opened fire in the air, warning the fisherfolk away. They fled, but not before snapping some grainy photos. The images, while low resolution, clearly show a massive superstructure and a swirling emblem on the hull, some stylized wave pattern, possibly Echelon's brand. This is the most concrete sighting we have of that vessel. It aligns with Commander West's claims that the Corona Australis houses a live colony of infected. Cages. That indicates the infected might not be docile or cooperative. Or maybe they're quarantined to keep them in stasis. Either way, the imagery is haunting. A floating fortress with row upon row of caged people under fungal influence. I can only imagine the moral calculus behind that. Are they researching them? Torturing them? Or simply trying to prevent them from merging into an uncontrollable supercolony? Earlier this evening, I received an anonymous audio file labeled Marisol_decklog. It's about 5 minutes long, presumably from the SS Marisol, the same ship that once had that deckhand, Aaron Walters, who told us of the fungus in the cargo hold. The audio sounds like a personal log from the first officer, dated weeks after the outbreak began. It's in the vents now. The captain sealed himself in the radio room, but we can hear him, chanting. I don't know. The fungus glows at night, creeping around corners. The others, they just stare at me when I pass. They're breathing in sync, no words, like they share a single mind. I tried to call for help again, but I can't muster the will. Every time I pick up the handset, I black out for a second. Woke up with these black threads on my arms. It's telling me to let go, let the tide take me. I fought it for days, but I'm so tired. The recording ends abruptly. If legitimate, it's a first-hand account of alpha stage infiltration. This officer was conscious enough to realize something was happening, but every attempt to fight back was overshadowed by the fungus's mental influence. And that haunting detail, the rest of the crew, motionless, in perfect unison, while the fungus glowed in the darkness. It's a chilling testament to the disease's power at sea. Sarah Delgado uncovered documents from a defunct biotech firm called Synergen Labs, which apparently merged with an offshoot of Elysium Research. These documents reference a development timeline for Project Echelon going back 15 years. The stated goal in earlier phases was to develop a robust, adaptive organism for cellular regeneration research. Over time, the language shifts to strategic advantage, population dynamics, and controlled infection scenarios. One file stands out. It details an early test in a remote region of Patagonia, where local wildlife showed remarkable regeneration after fungal exposure, but also severe neurological alteration. The last line reads, "Human trials to be initiated pending official sanction." That's from 2013. Everything since then suggests the trials went global, without official sanction, or perhaps with clandestine sanction. If so, the shipping crisis is no accident. It's part of a meticulously planned infiltration, or an experiment gone off the rails, or both. Either way, Echelon's pristine public facade as a maritime research enterprise is falling apart. They're deeply implicated in unleashing or fostering this fungus worldwide. Civil turmoil in various coastal cities, Rio de Janeiro, Lisbon, Cape Town, Los Angeles. People are done believing the vague official statements. They want explanations for the missing cargo ships, the quarantines, the rumored infected. This wave of unrest is unprecedented. Police cordons around ports are forcibly removed by protesters. Fires have broken out in some port facilities. I'm not an advocate for violence, but it's tragic to see this unravel. Governments have left the public in the dark for too long, and now frustration boils over. In many ways, this might be exactly what certain factions want: a smokescreen of civil chaos while they carry out deeper plans. If Echelon is indeed orchestrating final stages of this project, the last thing they want is a calm public demanding clarity. Chaos keeps everyone distracted. Commander West reached out again, offering a risky proposal. He wants me to coordinate with a handful of sympathetic naval officers who plan to intercept the Corona Australis. They believe capturing or at least thoroughly documenting that ship is crucial. The operation would involve a covert approach under cover of darkness, using small, agile vessels. The biggest question: what do they do with the infected? West says they'd attempt a rescue, but they can't guarantee the infected won't resist, or that the fungus won't spread to the boarding party. It's a moral minefield. Do we risk more people's lives to save those possibly beyond saving? But if the fungus is stabilizing them physically, maybe there's a chance for a cure. Dr. Romano and Dr. Cruz both want live subjects to test advanced treatments on. This mission could yield invaluable data, yet it's also extremely dangerous, and the escorts around the Corona Australis won't hesitate to fire on intruders. I told West I'd broadcast the plan covertly, but that's a double-edged sword. If Echelon's listening, they'll be prepared. On the other hand, if I stay silent, we lose the advantage of rallying any local mariners who might help, still weighing the risks. Tonight brought a third wave of calm, layered calls. We are close. The tide rises. Come to the open deck, join the circle. The voice of many is the voice of one. We are safe in unity. They repeated those lines in a loop for over a minute. Then the signal died. My entire rig squealed with feedback. After that, silence. Chilling, especially the reference to a circle and the open deck. Are they talking about the deck of the Corona Australis, or some other place? The methodical repetition suggests a rehearsed or programmed script, like the fungus is using a specific routine to lure or communicate. Regardless, it's more evidence that alpha-stage infected can coordinate transmissions, perhaps using electromagnetic pulses Dr. Romano mentioned. I must wonder, does the fungus want us to come voluntarily? Is this all a twisted invitation? A frantic voice note from Dr. Nina Masondo. The Durban coastline is experiencing an influx of wreckage from ghost ships cast adrift in the Mozambique Channel. At least 4 vessels are half submerged, teeming with fungal growth. Government teams deployed quickly, sealing off the beaches. Nina tried to approach one quarantine area, but armed soldiers turned her back. She suspects the situation is dire, maybe entire cargo holds full of alpha-infected. She's appealing to local leaders to let her examine them, but no one wants to risk further spread. Her biggest fear: contaminated waters. If the fungus is robust enough to survive in ocean currents, it might infiltrate local fisheries and marine life. Then it's only a matter of time before it reaches the population at large. Without a unified global response, local quarantines might be moot. Commander West says the intercept mission is a go for tomorrow night. The plan: a small strike team will approach the Corona Australis from the east, hoping the escorts are focused on the west or north. They'll board near the stern, attempt to secure a vantage point, and gather photographic and biological evidence. My role? Broadcast a diversionary message that might lure the escort ships away, or at least confuse them. West provided a set of coded phrases that, if picked up by Echelon's frequencies, could trigger a false alarm in another zone. It's a risky bluff. If it works, the strike team might slip in. If not, they could face heavy fire. I'll do it. The public deserves the truth, even if it means playing a dangerous game. So tomorrow, around midnight, I'll broadcast that code. I don't know how Echelon will react, but we're out of time for caution. Midnight, wind howling around my new makeshift tower in a deserted orchard. I steady my nerves and speak into the mic. This is an urgent bulletin for all vessels operating near the Atlantic Quadrant, specifically at coordinates 32.763 north, 64.501 west. Unauthorized drift reported. All units to stand by for immediate response. Repeat, immediate response required. Code Delta Echo 7. I repeat the message in a monotone voice just as West instructed. Then I switch to normal broadcast. For anyone else listening, disregard those last lines. They weren't meant for you. This is Ryder Morgan with the open water signal, signing off for the night. Be safe. That's all I can do. Send the coded message into the ether, hoping Echelon's intercept squads take the bait and move to the wrong coordinates. Meanwhile, West's team should be going for the Corona Australis. My hands tremble slightly as I power down. May they succeed. At dawn, I pace around the orchard, anxiously scanning frequencies. Finally, a short beep announces an incoming encrypted message. We boarded. Minimal resistance initially, but they caught on. We have casualties. The ship is a nightmare. 100+ infected, locked in cages. Heavy fungal presence on lower decks. We're pulling out with some samples and visual proof. The rest, we had to seal off. Couldn't handle them. They're beyond reason. Mission success. For now. He also attached a few low-res images. The deck of the Corona Australis strewn with shipping containers. Figures crouched in cages, some standing unnaturally still. Glowing fungus creeping across metal walls. A sign near one hatch read, Echelon Stage 4 Trials. They found no commanding officer, no labs with scientists in white coats. The entire operation seemed automated or run by a skeleton crew. West's team had to retreat when reinforcements arrived, presumably from the escort ships. They suspect the Corona Australis will relocate soon, possibly going deeper into the Atlantic. But we've got enough evidence to confirm the worst. Echelon is actively housing Alpha Stage infected on board, studying them in horrifying conditions. The global community can't ignore this forever. Commander West forwarded the proof to me, Sarah Delgado, Dr. Cruz, Dr. Masondo, and any journalist who might be courageous enough to run the story. As of this broadcast, I've uploaded the data to multiple secure dead drop locations. If you're hearing this, watch out for links shared on forums or encrypted channels. The images and partial video clips show the caged infected, the fungal overgrowth, and Echelon's branding. This is the smoking gun. Now, the question, will the mainstream pick it up, or will they hush it down? We live in an era of manipulated narratives. Some outlets might ignore it, others might brand it as staged propaganda. But the tide is turning. People worldwide see the ghost ships and know something's deeply wrong. Late this evening, Dr. Romano called in from Naples with urgent news. She's documented a phenomenon in one of her alpha-infected patients, a slow, partial reversal of the infection. The patient's neural scans show the fungus receding in certain brain regions, as if it's losing interest or fleeing. The individual's speech is returning, though still laced with collective references. This is new. We assumed alpha infection was permanent. Dr. Romano speculates that external stimuli, possibly a strong emotional trigger or specific chemical changes, might disrupt the fungus's hold. The patient had a tearful reunion with her child, which led to a moment of clarity. Could intense emotional bonds or certain neural patterns override the fungus? If so, there might be hope. Dr. Romano is replicating the environment that triggered this partial reversal. She calls it cognitive reinforcement therapy, designed to re-establish personal identity and strong emotional anchors. It's early days, no guarantee of widespread success. Still, it's the first spark of genuine optimism since this nightmare began. Could there be a way to starve or bore the fungus, encouraging it to detach? If so, that might become a cornerstone of any global cure effort. Echelon might not even know about this, or if they do, they're keeping it quiet for their own reasons. Now the public has partial proof of Echelon's involvement in mass-scale fungal experimentation, plus the first hint of a potential therapy. The reaction is explosive. Some communities celebrate the possibility of a cure. Others are furious at learning about the caged infected on the Corona Australis. Protests intensify worldwide. Government spokespeople scramble with conflicting statements. Some decry Echelon, others vow to investigate, while others downplay the evidence as fabricated. The narrative war is in full swing. Meanwhile, the fungal threat remains real and present. New ghost ships wash ashore daily. Quarantines expand. Large swaths of coastline are effectively off limits. Shipping lines face financial collapse. And behind it all, the fungus continues to adapt. We're at a tipping point. A single event, an outbreak in a major city, or a conclusive demonstration of a cure, could shift the entire crisis. One final call from the infected voices came through tonight. Instead of cryptic phrases, they repeated a single line. We reach a new horizon. Then silence. No background noise, no static, just a deliberate cutoff. A sense of finality to it. Maybe the fungus collectively knows we're onto them, that humanity is rallying behind new therapy research. Or perhaps they're preparing one last push, an escalation we can't imagine. That's where we stand, folks. A fungus that seemed unstoppable now shows a crack in its armor. Some alpha-infected might revert if given the right conditions. The Corona Australis sails the Atlantic, harboring caged hosts under Echelon's watchful eye. Commander West's team has battered proof of these atrocities. Doctors Cruz, Masondo and Romano are scrambling to refine any possible cure. Sara Delgado is busy deciphering more codes, revealing Echelon's deeper designs. And I, Ryder Morgan, remain on the run, broadcasting from an orchard while watching the horizon for black helicopters and unmarked vans. I don't know how this will end. Maybe the fungus will spread faster than we can contain it. Maybe Echelon's conspirators will clamp down, unleashing new horrors or burying the truth. Or maybe the tide truly turns. With enough voices, enough courage, and enough open-eyed determination, we might contain this crisis and hold those responsible to account. We might even salvage some glimmer of hope that the infected can be saved. Wherever this leads, I won't stop. As long as I can speak into this microphone, you'll hear the truth. Keep your radios tuned and your spirits sharp. The next broadcast could bring more revelations, or a final sign-off if they catch me. But one thing is certain, we've come too far to let silence bury us now. This is Ryder Morgan, still on the open water signal, reminding you that the darkest storms sometimes reveal hidden lights. Stay vigilant, stay humane, and never stop seeking answers. We are all that stands between shadow and dawn. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.